Can you hear me?
I can.
It's still not doing it. I think we may have a technical issue, unfortunately.
So it shows live here, but we're not streaming to LinkedIn.
Yeah. This is not great. We may have to push this, unfortunately. I hate to do that. Go in here.
We just got something in the chat.
Oh, we're live. I think.
And they can hear us. Yay.
Oh, thank God. Well, that took a while. Sorry about that, guys. Very, very sorry about that, guys. Okay, so let's jump right in because Tom, people have been waiting very graciously. So here's my challenge here, Tom. Okay. So in my world, on my end of it, on the marketing side of it, and I'm like sales marketing, but marketing, and you're the sales side, and you're representing that for a second. We have the sort of what we call the trifecta for outbound, right? Which is the list or the people we're actually going to be talking to. We have the offer, which is what we're going to be talking to the right people about. And we have how it's said, right? The copywriting and that kind of stuff. I do mostly the copywriting stuff. You're on the sales side. Unfortunately, the offers tend not to get the same amount of scrutiny that making sure we're talking to the right people and how we're saying what we want to say should get. Do you agree with that or disagree with that?
I do. I mean, can you imagine confusion in your offering? That never happens, right?
Mm.
As you and I have talked in the past, that is core to success or lack thereof, right? Because, and I say it in simple terms, and especially fractionals, I love them all. That's what we do, and we love
Yes,
helping
they're my
people.
people.
It's really great, right? But the issue is that the client has to really recognize that they have the need, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so part of our sales pitch is not great copy and wonderful
Nope.
acronyms and all that. It's about really learning what are those pains, or on the flip side, what gains they're trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
Specifically, that's really causing them either strife or uneasiness. And once you have that, if you actually have a solution, articulating it in terms that they can go, I got to have it, right? And it
Yeah.
sounds simple, but I think if we're all being honest, and I am guilty of this as charged, I give lots and lots of sales speak because we all know our stuff, right? And that's great. But if we can't articulate it in a way that our prospect or potential prospect can understand it as a real need for them, it's really difficult.
Now,
So
clearly, it
yeah.
pains me, right, that this is a prioritization issue where if you're not talking to the right people, nothing else matters. But then, assuming you're talking to the right people, the offer and the content of it is even more important than how you say it. It's important to say it, but if you have a crappy offer that no one is interested in, no amount of great copywriting is going to save it.
Right.
And so we're in that in-between space. It's difficult. I've been spending a lot of time in the last 12 months tweaking and figuring out like what makes a great offer, especially in the confines of B2B. Because in B2B, there are lots of things you can't do that you can do in B2C, right? All kinds of concepts that you might use in B2B, in B2C aren't applicable, including probably the biggest one is scarcity. You can almost never create an offer in a B2B environment that talks about scarcity. For the most part, companies and the people who make buying decisions in companies, they do not buy something today that they won't be able to buy again tomorrow if they need it. And so, and there's all kinds of psychology that we use in B2C marketing we can't use in B2B. So this, and we're going to sort of walk it backwards, right? Mm-hmm. Or walk it forwards. This is us going through how offers get created in a way that's structured and makes sense and is as simple as possible. I've got my comments in here because I like to make sure that I can like see my stuff. You've got your comments in your head, which is where mine should be too, but they're not. And so, by the way, anyone who's registered, I'll go ahead and make sure you get a link. If you don't, I'll send you a link or I'll put it in a message later, so you can actually see this Google document in case you came in the way you were invited. You're not going to be able to see it on your own later. So it's going to stay up forever, and anyone who has the link can view it. So I guess, Tom, first, clearly, we're trying to pick a problem that they want to fix. And on my side of this whole equation, we have all kinds of names for this. We call this technically it was a customer pain. We call it a bleeding from the neck problem. Like it must be addressed, right? Perry Marshall kind of stuff. And the idea is you're trying to strike a balance. You can approach your offer by thinking, okay, here are the things that I can make. Let's say you're a fractional CMO, you have a professional services business, something along those lines. You can go at an offer by saying, I'm going to like figure out what I can provide, and then I'm going to go try to convince people to buy it. And this is possible, and almost everyone tries it at some point, but it is so much easier to just figure out what people want to buy, list that down, list out what you can provide in there, what part of that you can solve, and then just go sell that.
Yeah. It's certainly possible.
Let's hear it for laziness.
Yeah. I mean, as a salesperson, if I'm being completely honest, laziness is a virtue. You want to go to low-hanging fruit. You want to have repeatable transactions that deliver a ton of value, right? So that's being lazy is a plus, believe it or not.
And then the other challenge, of course, especially if you're a one-person company or you're a solo or practitioner and so on, is that in my workshop that I have to run every client through, there's a section where we talk about there are the 5 stages of customer awareness. Like, where are your customers? And the one is they don't even know they have a problem. Number 2 is they know they have a problem. It hasn't occurred to them. Someone sells a solution. Number 3 is they know they have a problem. They figure somebody must be selling a solution. Number 4 is they know they have the problem and they know the players who sell the solution. And number 5 is they know about the problem, the players, and you. And now they just kind of need a nudge to buy from you. Yeah. You almost never, I don't get people at level 5. Like, that's so easy that nobody pays me to do that. Right. What I look for, and I have a lot of, and I'll tell them I have a lot of reservations about your setup, is if they're not at least a 3, right? The people that they want to sell to have to know that they have a problem, and they have to know that there are people who sell a solution. Because anything below that, and you're trying to educate a market into existence, and you never want to try to educate a market into existence because you'll never, as a single person company, you'll never have enough time and enough money to do that. Yeah. Worst case scenario, it won't work at all. Best case scenario is still pretty bad. You manage to somewhat educate a market into existence, but you're financially and like mentally exhausted. Someone else comes in, picks it up, because now everyone's at a level 3. They can just come in at level 3 and take those customers.
Yeah, so precisely. And I think what you're getting to, and it's always been part of my philosophy too, is it's about the buyer's journey. We spend a lot of time coming up with our sales process. And if you're a fractional, you're good, right? You have done a lot. You bring so much to the table. And so it's tempting to really promote all of that. And there's a time and a place for that. But to your point, the buyer is more educated than ever. They've got Google, they've got AI, they can find out stuff out there. And when they're ready to talk to somebody, they're going to want to talk in terms that they understand. And that's why it's key. And while all the fractionals, everybody's wonderful, do you think you sell the only solution out there like yours? Probably not. So you have to be memorable. And the best way to do that is to identify the value you deliver, not how you do it. I mean, there's a little of that, but it's what you deliver and what the client can expect in terms of what they want. And that's the buyer's journey. So understanding what they're going through, or at least trying to kind of visualize that, helps you to be better, more memorable than your competitors. It's critical.
Now, I just in the last week saw this little trick that I'm going to tell people about. If you're on my mailing list, you would have gotten it last week. I think it was called like the 10 lessons from the first quarter of this year. And one of them was around customer research. And it was so easy. And it's this. Well, first of all, the concept around most of sort of the newer thinking in customer research is that, do you know, Tom, have you heard the phrase like the 398s?
I have not.
It's that 98% of you is like 98%, identical to 98% of everyone else, 98% of the time. Which basically means you can either, if you're really in touch with the problem that you're having and your customers would coincidentally have it, you have enough customer research so that you can at least get going. But the trick that that I saw, and it was a ChatGPT prompt. Don't normally just give away chat, because they're like, it's overblown, right? ChatGPT is not necessarily overblown, but like everyone has a prompt. This prompt's going to make you $1 million. This one is not going to make you $1 million. But what you do is you go to LinkedIn, you find someone, or like 3 or 4 or 10 people who match the kind of people that like CEO of a 50 to 100 person company doing whatever, and you think you've got, like, you're looking at their profile page, you grab the link from their profile page, you go to ChatGPT and you type in, because it can like search the internet now, right? Look at the profile for this person and tell me the wants, the needs, the concerns, the challenges that they're having right now in their work, and people like them, and it will go ahead and it builds out this like ICP for you, right? Ideal customer profile, and you can query it as if like they've already talked to that person, right? What is this person most worried about? What's sort of coming up in 2026 that they probably should be concerned about right now? And you can just ask it all kinds of questions just by grabbing their profile link off of LinkedIn, plugging it into ChatGPT and say, tell me about a person like this and the challenges and wants and fears and needs that they're having.
Yeah, killer hack. The other one that I like to use a lot for cold outreach or connection requests is make sure you do the same thing, but just in their about section, because that's where we're talking about ourselves, right?
Yeah.
All are great things. So grab something that is authentically something that you align with in their about section. Go ahead and mention it in your cold outreach. It's going to get a little bit more resonance.
Yep. Okay. So picking a problem they want to fix and that you can promise to have a fix for, like if you can commit to it. A lot of people don't want to commit to results. And I totally understand that, especially since depending on where you are in a buyer cycle and the kind of work you do to make that part of the buyer cycle stronger, you may not have much control over results. But there's almost always some kind of result that you can point to and say, like, I focus on this kind of result. It's just, even if you can't give them a stat or a number, it's still comforting for anyone who's going to be exposed to your offer to know that there is a result that you aim for.
Yes, most definitely.
And then I like really simple little things. And on the right hand side there, where it says, "Can I find them?" These are like if you've like thought up a new service or a new thing you might want to sell or an offer you might want to make. If you pass all 3 of these, then you're in business. And if you can't pass all 3 of them, you might as well stop. Which is, can I find these people? Right? I had a client. It was I almost never work for nonprofits. It just doesn't work out that way. I don't have anything against working for nonprofit.
Sure.
But I said, so like, who are we trying to find? And it said like parents who are frustrated. And I said, isn't that literally every parent at some point? Like, you can't boil the ocean here. You can't. Your market can't be everyone. Nobody's market is everyone. And we had to narrow it down. Can you find them? Like what specifically? And then we realized that we could get it from court records for troubled teens. And that's who they were really going after. But, if you can find them based on a job title or any kind of criteria, you can plug it into LinkedIn, you can plug it into Clay, whatever, or Apollo, right? If you can define in a way that a search engine could find for you, like who they are, that's great. That's level 1. Because if you can't find them, nothing else is going to matter. And then, do they pay people like me for this? If you want to sell something, that'd be a great idea. I bet a lot of people like this. But then you can't really find examples of people who pay people for that. That's probably not a good sign.
Right. Absolutely.
And then third is you still have to get to them and get your message and get your offer in front of them. If you can't do that cost effectively, if it takes you like 7 meetings and 3 months to get all 7 meetings before you're going to they could possibly buy, and it's not a really high ticket offer, then you can't reach them cost effectively.
Right.
Unfortunately, It might be the best idea in the world, but if it's just going to cost you time and attention and money and end up with almost nothing, there's no point in doing it, however great it would be.
It's good. Let me just kind of throw a thought out there that probably resonates with everybody that's on the call, right? When we don't stay true to our ICP that we've developed, right? We say this is exactly who it is. This
Yeah.
is the type of value we deliver. But does it ever happen to anybody where you're like, oh, I just got to take this gig. I need the revenue. Have we
Yeah.
ever done that ever, right? And so when we do that, it really is very destructive, right? Because now we're outside our ICP. We did it. We said we wouldn't do it. We did. And now it's really hard for us to really justify and articulate what it is we did value because, yeah, this is my main value, but yeah, I'll do some other stuff too. We don't look like the thought leader that we are trying to project. And
Yeah.
it's critical. Like, yeah, we need the revenue for sure. But if you take the wrong revenue, and I think everybody's nodding their head out there, a lot of times it's like, wow, I never should have taken that one. Even maybe you had to fire somebody. I would think this thought process, that's going to happen a lot less frequently and you're going to be more profitable. And that's the key, right?
Yeah, there's really something when you're working for someone who like wants what you sell and needs what you sell and values what you sell. That's like the perfect trifecta of a client.
Yeah, it is, because people love to buy stuff if they think it's going to be good for them. They hate to be sold. So when you can really help them understand that, oh yeah, I get your issue. I see that.
Yeah.
This is what we're going to do. And this is what you can expect in terms of ROI. Is that what you're looking for? What good things would happen if that started to happen? We need to understand how important it is to them too, because even though we've identified it, doesn't mean that they're committed to the solution.
Nope.
So that's important too.
And I would also put in here, most single person or very tiny businesses can look at customers and categorize them and should. Like you probably need one or two keep the lights on customers. There's the 4 categories, right? There's keep the lights on, there's education, there's retail, and there's logo. So the keep the lights on customer, they don't need very much from you any given month, but they're very consistent. They always pay, right? It gives you a revenue floor. You know you're going to eat and make your mortgage at least this month. Right? And so you've got one or two keep the lights on customers. You may or may not have any education customers, but it's a company that comes to you and says, "Hey, we would like to do X," and you're not really an expert in X, but you've always sort of thought you'd like to learn how to do X, like from a skill set or experience set. And if their money is going to subsidize your education that you can then resell to other people, then you might take on education customers, right? Retail customer, they buy what you sell, right? They're in your wheelhouse. They're paying regular prices, no discounts or anything like that, right? You're making your profit, you're making your margin. Like they're your bread and butter customers, and you need as many of them as you want. And then you're going to need at some point one or more logo customers, right? That's a badge. In my field right now on my website, there's 2 kinds of logo customers. There's the big direct billion-dollar companies that I write for, like Accenture and PaySafe and Quest and companies like that. And then there's the fractional specific ones, right? My clients like SalesXceleration, which is sort of how you and I sort of originally connected, right? And Chief Outsiders and Wolf's Edge Integrators, right? And like fractional companies that are relatively or very well known, right? So it's not a bad idea to figure out which of your clients belong. Obviously, you don't necessarily. You should make good profit on your logo customers, but once in a while, especially your first ever logo customer, if you don't have one yet, like a famous company, it doesn't have to be famous for the whole world, but it would be known by everyone that you're talking to in your prospects. And
Sure.
if you're only going to break even on that, that's great. Take it anyway, because you're going to use that logo on your website till the end of time.
Big time.
It's going to help bring in more customers, make them feel safe. Well, I mean, if Google would pay them, Apple pays them, then it'll probably good enough for me, kind of thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's brilliant. What you're talking about, like grouping your customers in type, that's critical because it helps you prioritize
and maintain a mix, right? You don't want too many of any's, except you definitely want as many of your retail as possible. But for the others, you might consider that just because you're going to get something in the long run. And then I had one more thing talking about packaging, sort of, what, now that you've gone to LinkedIn, you've maybe used ChatGPT to examine their profiles and do your customer research, and you figure out like the problems or gaps or fears that they have, their needs. You can start putting together an offer. A lot of people will try to hit a home run right from the jump. And in my world, in outbound cold email advertising kind of copywriting, We have a concept called threshold. Probably everyone has a concept called threshold, which is to say you can imagine that the reader or your prospect has to walk up a flight of stairs, and at the top of the stairs is, hey, let's make lots of money, both of us, kind of thing, right?
Right.
The first step, the first stair should be as low as possible. That still makes sense, right? I mean, really low, like download this free PDF, or,
Yes.
you know, if the first threshold is too big, oh, let's do a discovery call for half an hour, right? That might work in some fields, but in most fields, that's like a big commitment. A half an hour of my day is a big commitment to a vendor that I've never heard of.
Yep.
And so you make that threshold. It says over here, the smaller the risk, the easier the yes, right? It has to feel big enough so that they're making progress towards something, like whatever that positive future is they're going to get to. But make the first threshold as small as possible. And that might mean that your offer is quite small. It might be like a half-day workshop, or like, a 60-minute audit of something, or whatever. But make the threshold between their negative present and some watered down version of their positive future. Make that threshold as small as possible so that more people will step out.
Yeah, and it keeps coming back to the same cadence. It's like, what is the big problem? Number two is what happens if that problem is solved? So that's important. And then the last point in your pitch is we've helped similar companies do 10% more. We've done this occasionally. Usually a 20-minute conversation can figure out whether it's something for you or not. So you're really making it simple, and people don't like to be left out. So you're using a little of that retail marketing as well.
All right, so here we go. A format that matches the buyer's behavior. And so this is going to be different for the kind of work or services that you provide. For me, the thing that I sell literally every client is my hook workshop, right? It's my discovery process. Typically, people are very focused companies, very focused on figuring out what they want to say. And then they may or may not bring in someone like me to figure out the best way to say it. That's great. Those are important steps. But the workshop that every one of my clients has to buy starts on the other end with what will that person actually pay attention to? What will get their attention? Right. Because if we can't spark that, nothing else actually happens, right? And so we work backwards. And so for me, a workshop works really, really well. Like they get a workbook ahead of time, takes them like 45 minutes usually to fill it in. It's a bunch of sort of backwards kind of questions, right? It's everything's like from the prospects or readers' point of view, not from what you want to say. Figuring out the best way to say what you want to say is easy. Like figuring out what they'll pay attention to is the hard part. And then, so for me, that sort of fill out this workbook, and then we'll have a one-to-one workshop session, maybe like an hour and a half, where we walk through all of your answers, and I'll put in my ideas, and I'll get clarification, and I'll push back on some stuff, right? Don't tell me that you like digitally transform fast-moving businesses, and that's the only sentence you have. I don't know what the hell that means.
Right.
And so for me, a workshop process works really well. For other people, like an audit would work really well, or, laying out some kind of roadmap for somebody. I mean, what are some of the examples that you see?
Yeah. So two thoughts right now. Right now, probably more important than ever, because the economy is a little unsettled out there, right? A lot of people.
Whose economy is unsettled?
Right. Long term, we don't know what to do. So as a small business, right now, long-term commitments are kind of tough. And even if I'm talking about my service, if I'm building infrastructure, it's probably 3 or 4 months. They might need me as a fractional sales manager. Could be a year commitment. They're not up for that. So for me, I need to kind of say, well, let's try something that's really high on the priority list, get some traction there, and keep moving on. So that helps. The other piece that we always talk about is being memorable. And I talk about referral partners. Most of my business comes from other people. So it's equally important that they understand what I do for other clients so that they can articulate that. So making sure those two things are aligned, whatever you're pitching is going to make more sense to whoever's receiving it. You have to read the room. You have to know what's going on. So based on what you were talking about with research, you're going to get a lot of cool stuff there, thanks to AI. If you've already kind of seen what pain points they've articulated, and they've kind of said, oh gosh, I don't know, long-term is hard, and just say, I feel you. I'm in the same place. Let's work on a solution that could actually give you quick ROI and deliver it without having to commit. How does that sound? So getting them to speaking with them where they're at is so true. And if we're being honest, even as a sales guy, we might just blow past them and say, you need this thing. And I'm being facetious, but you have to go do it. And they're like, I don't think so. That pressure is killing me. And we never want to do that. So that's
one of my favorite books, you may have come across this book actually. One of my favorite books that I read in the last year is a book called Outbounding.
Yep.
And this concept, not the sentence itself, it's not plagiarized, but this concept is stolen from that book, yep. Which is, he talks about, sorry, I'm blanking on his name. He talks about above the line and below the line prospects that you'll talk to in a company. And above the line is basically VP and above. And below the line is like senior director and below. And the higher up, the above the line folks, they want strategy, right? They want confidence in you and confidence in the solution you're selling. The below the line people are going to be more interested in execution and deliverables when you're talking to them. And so you may want to think about whether you're talking to above the line or below the line people first, and second, you want to focus more on strategy and confidence in you as opposed to just execution, deliverables, features, and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that you're onto something there that's really, really important, because they have to understand what's really going on. I mean, that's just critical.
Yeah, we used to, when I was on the sales engineering side, we used to talk about how we used to sell to enterprise, like really big infrastructure companies, like cable companies and stuff. We used to say there's always two sales happening at the same time. There's the technical sale and the business sale. And you have to win the business sale based on getting a yes. You win the technical sale based on not getting a no. In other words, like you might have to like show off all of your features and prove and demos and all that kind of stuff and bake-offs. But at the end of the day, the technical folks, they don't have a budget. Like they can't say yes to a purchase, or if they did, it wouldn't matter. Whereas what you never want to do is end up in a meeting with, a VP or something. And there's like, why are we even in this meeting? This isn't even on my plan for this year.
Yeah. So you brought up something else, and it's about decision-making that is really critical. And going back to buyer personas, a lot of it's like sales speak, but it is important. Yeah. You really identify what's happening. Now, there's some generalities. It's never perfect, but if you know that an executive may be very, very intolerant to risk, maybe looking for growth or whatever, you're going to approach them a little bit differently. But anymore, even big decisions, even hiring a consultant is usually by committee. So you may have those technical buyers. They may be in the prime of their careers. They're trying to score points to look good. So the way I approach them may be a little bit different the way I articulate it, because I'm trying to put a feather in their cap as well as helping the client. So knowing who you're talking to really helps you in how to pitch them as well.
Yeah. By the way, if you see this like purple and brown thing up on the top, these are people who've realized that the link to this document is in the chat for this LinkedIn, and they're like already in. They couldn't wait. And I think I literally did take this line from Outbounding. Right? Does the buyer want a PowerPoint, a plan, or a partner? Right? Different levels of what you need to provide for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
People are smart, man. They'll figure out. They'll get in on stuff.
They will, and being smart is what it's all about. I always say, business is nothing more than fixing problems. That's really all it is.
That's the definition of a small business, is it fixes someone's problem for money.
That's what we do. Like some of my clients are like, oh, we have so many problems here. I'm like, well, yeah, that's it. Yeah. Right? That's what it is. And then if you can't fix all your own stuff, I'm being very facetious, then you go outside to find the expertise you need to get you where you need to. Making that connection is the challenge that we're all talking about here. And if you do it well and thoughtfully, and then also measure yourself, what worked? And if it worked, again, get back to being lazy like a salesperson. Keep doing that, because something is really resonating out there, and keep riding that pony until you have to come up with a new trick. Really important.
Now you get to name your offer.
Yeah.
And for some people, this is the most fun part. And for other people, this is the most anxiety, cringe-inducing part of the whole thing. Right?
Yeah.
And the takeaway that I just wanted to leave for people is that the name is not about you. It's about them. If you want to name your offer like the proven, I hate these kind of things, but the proven power process for finance department turnarounds, like that's mostly about you, not about them. Like choose a name, play around with it. Go to ChatGPT and say, here's my business. Here's what my offer is. Here's what my suggested name is. What do you think? All right, give me one that's more serious. Give me one that's more like reader focused or whatever. But name it based on something that is very clear. Either very clear what the deliverable is, right? There's a reason that my workshop is called The Hook. It's because it creates a hook. Its whole job is to figure out that sentence and then all the messaging around it. And right, it's not because I love the name The Hook. I don't, not at all. But it tells everyone what we're making, and that's what it's for, right? But make sure that whatever you name your offer, it's like named around the deliverable or named around the problem that the person is or the company is having, and not named around you and how you want to get all slick and you think that putting the word proven in it somewhere, or God forbid proven strategy, right? If I would along with the words enable and transform, I would strike proven strategy from the English language. Right. It's not that they were never good things to say. It's that they're so overused that now they're cringy things to say.
Yeah, the old strategic growth. Everyone's that.
Exactly. Does anyone try to do growth that isn't strategic? Like, let's do messy growth. Let's do growth that could destroy our company. Like, no one, there's no point saying strategic because it's built in. But just have some fun with the name. We don't have to spend a lot of time on naming, but just like have some fun with the name, but take it to a tool or other people and like bounce it off them and see if you can improve it. And always come up with multiple names that you're then going to choose one from. Don't just like land on one and go. It almost never works out.
Right.
I do this for a living and it never works out to just come up with one.
Yeah. But when you do it enough and you do it right enough, you also will get organic growth, because eventually some of those folks that just ghosted on you because the pitch was appropriate, timing was bad, they can come back to you. It doesn't happen all the time, but if you're doing it right, it will happen.
Yeah. Now, this part, it says page or pitch, right? Your pitch is, in my experience, there are more steps, but it needs to have at least these 5 steps. Right? You start with what's broken and why work on it now. And then talk about what we're going to fix together. You're not going to fix everything. They've got way more problems than you can ever deal with, no matter how big or small they are. But you're focused and you're going to deliver something concrete. How it works, this is where you get to geek out a bit. A little tip about how it works. By the time you're done, whether on like you write a web page for it or an email or a PowerPoint, or you're doing it live in a conversation, how it works will probably be the longest part of your pitch or page. It's more detail filled and stuff. There's an overt and a covert message that you need to deliver at the same time in the how it works part. The overt message is, I'm being very transparent about this. Here's the diagrams. Here's the workflow. Here's exactly what we would do, right? Here's everything that you would need to know, not just to make this decision, but if you were really clever or focused or motivated, you could reverse engineer this and build a solution yourself and you wouldn't even need it. Absolutely. Right? I've completely opened the kimono. Here's how our stuff solves the problem. The covert message you're leaving them, so that the thought that they should have in their head is, they've done all the thinking and work on this. It's cheaper and easier just to give them money and shortcut myself to a positive future.
Right.
I'm not going to mess with all that crap. So on the one hand, you're like stressing how like complete your solution is, and focus doesn't solve everything, but complete in self, and and detailed that you've given them. But the takeaway is just give them the cash, right? Like, I don't want to bother with this. I want this problem gone. I've got 17 other that I'm supposed to be dealing with too. Yeah. Just give them the money, have them fix it, and let's move on.
They want to buy.
Well, exactly. And then you end with like positive future, which is what you'll get when you walk away, right? Like you get all this when we're concluded. Maybe we'll re-up, but even if we're not, you're going to have A, B, and C, and you're in a better place. And then probably just a line or two, don't dwell on it, but just a reminder of the negative future, which is if you don't do anything, here's like, at a minimum, you'll be in the same situation 3 months or 12 months or 24 months from now. And problems almost never get smaller on their own.
That's the killer, because if you've got their full attention and you're asking, and that's always the question I do, what would be the cost of doing nothing?
Yeah.
Right. And if we're really having a good conversation, that's the moment when entrepreneurs hopefully kind of go, yeah, I shouldn't be trying this on my own anymore. And that should be your close, because it is important. No business should be doing anything that they're expending resources on that's outside their core. It makes no sense, right?
Yeah. And then sort of the takeaway is whoever you're talking to, whether they're explaining why something is still broken to somebody,
Right.
to a coworker, to their own customers, to management, to the board, to themselves, right? Whatever. They're explaining and have to keep explaining and do not like having to keep explaining that this doesn't work.
Right.
It's still broken. We can't do that for ourselves because this doesn't work. Or we can't do this for you, dear customer, because we're not capable. Somebody has something that they want to stop having to explain is broken, and your offer is wrapped around fixing that.
Yep.
Everybody loves not having to explain yet again this Monday morning, just like last Monday morning and Monday before that and Monday 2 months ago. They still haven't like fixed this thing, and this is still on our agenda, right? They want it gone. So make it gone.
Yep. 100%. And I also say too, if they've shared it with you, a lot of businesses are, I'd say any businesses are always for sale, right? But a lot of businesses are starting to eye exits or potentially thinking about that.
Yeah.
And really part of your conversation can be, hey, these are things that we're doing to button this up because eventually it's going to deliver value to the company, which will, it'll manifest itself in higher multiple or you having to be stuck at the business for a less period of time. So I bring those things up whenever it's offered, for sure.
That level of messaging is for above the line owners, CEOs, boards, VPs, and above.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So then you're getting it in front of people, right? Ideally, the right people. You've done some research, right? You've probably had ChatGPT look at multiple types of profiles of people on LinkedIn, and you found the type that seemed to match what you want. Okay? If nobody seems interested, it's almost always you haven't made it clear enough. You haven't made the outcome clear enough. There's a price versus trust mismatch, which is what they have to pay versus how much they trust you to actually be successful in this, are not lined up, or you just have a targeting issue. And so when you're, and I say posts here, but it could be emails, it could be networking conversations, it could be 3-minute speeches, elevator pitches, right? You getting in front of a small group, you envisage or whatever, right? The first 10 or so, don't get too discouraged. Just treat them as research. If you don't get bites on 1 and 2, make some changes. Go for 3 and 4. 3 and 4 a bit warmer, but people are sort of hesitating. Okay, that's great feedback. Now I need to like zoom in on that. And then the first, X number are going to be research. Almost nobody ever like nails it right off the bat. Yep. So you're going to have to tweak and sort of get feedback and reconstruct a tiny bit until you're saying the right things so that the right people are interested. So don't get discouraged, right? No matter how complete this is a pretty good agenda with including questions and that kind of stuff, but it doesn't matter. You're still going to have some trial and error to dial in the perfect messaging for your stuff. I mean, we're all human.
Yeah, sure. And I mean, even that's ongoing almost forever, right? You're always going to be adjusting as markets change, competition changes. Yeah.
And then like there's some like suggestions here, just like to get fast feedback without putting in too much like effort. And just see, would you like, what do you think about this? I'm not trying to sell this to you, but for people who have your problem, what do you think about that?
Absolutely. And just being the salesperson I am, at the end of any pitch, regardless, I'm always going to also ask for referrals. And just say, hey, now you can kind of how we deliver value. Anybody else in your network that I might be able to have a cool conversation with, I'd love to.
Yeah.
It's just smart.
And ultimately, after you've done that bit of research, right, and your trial and error, you've iterated a little bit, then finally you get something that's pretty reliable. If you put it in front of 10 people, like 5 will express some interest, 2 will go down a funnel with you, and 1 becomes a customer. Let's say. I'm just making up those numbers, but they seem about right in my experience.
Yeah. I mean, the funnel is the shape it is for a reason. That's exactly how it works.
And I mean, if, like it says in the comment, if your offer sounds like something they'd pitch to their boss, you're on the right track.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Hey, I know a light CRM that would fix this problem for us. Or I know someone, I got a call this morning from one of my clients who just had a meeting with the head of marketing at a big private equity firm. and he showed him like a recent example, which happened to be something I wrote. And I was like, who wrote that? Right. And so like, yeah, like there's this guy and he like does it like this and he writes it this way almost always for B2Bs, right? And like he's got these sort of concepts he uses. And
Right.
the PE guy was like, yeah, I want to talk to that guy, right? Because that's something he could pitch. When you've got when your offer is like tweaked in enough so that it someone else could pick it up and pitch it to their boss, then you've got a good something going on.
Yeah, 100%. And then back to it. I mean, then they look good if they have presented a new idea to a boss and it eventually happens. They can put that feather in their cap.
Yeah. And then this can be tricky. I get it. But ultimately, a sales call converts someone into a customer when you are telling them stuff that they didn't know, but they feel like they knew it as soon as you say it.
Yep.
It's like, I totally get that, right? Or yes, or the sort of like the adjacent concept for this is they've always known it or they always thought this. They just never put it into words or heard anyone put it into words, right? If when you get there, which is, probably 5, 10, 25 calls in, with some reflection. How did that go? What did I say? What did they say? What seemed to work? Where? Then it's like, yeah, that totally makes sense to me. Like, yeah, I've kind of always known that. They're not saying this out loud, but I kind of always knew that. I just never really thought about it before. Right? I have this. I don't use many slides. I try to avoid them, but I have this one slide where it talks about sort of the 3 levels that your message is going to come on, right?
Yep.
And like the level 1 where almost everything is informational. And you're basically saying, here's who we are, here's what we sell, here's what it does, here are the feeds and speeds and stuff, right? And that's fine. That needs to be, most of your message, but it can't usually be the first thing. I say, the problem you've got is you're on level 1. Level 2 is aspirational, where it flips over to the reader's point of view. And it's like, you could be a different person, or you could have a different company if you come down this path with us. And then I tell them the third one is transformational, which you almost never do in B2B, which is you could be new. You could be a new person. You could be a new company. You almost never see you could be new or transformational in B2B. Anytime you see the word transformational, it's almost always like raises suspicion, because no one's going to trust you enough to go in, rip their business down to the studs and rebuild it. Like, that's not a thing. So we don't do transformational in B2B, but aspirational, right? You could be better. You could live in a different future if you buy what I sell, right? And just make that the very first thing you open with, right? Obviously, you have your own thing. You have your own headline. You don't say that literal word, right? Sentence, but that's the idea. Like, everything else can be informational, but you start with some kind of hope. You start with aspirational, and then they understand. They see, yeah, he understands me. He understands the problem that we're having and where we want to go. Let's get into the details, and off you go.
Yeah.
I lay that out, and they say, yeah, like, I've always kind of known that. I just didn't have words for it. That's when I know I'm going to get a new client.
It triggers another idea that I know that most sales acceleration advisors use in our sales engagements, and that's we have a pretty robust sales agility assessment.
Mm-hmm.
It's really big, right? But it's easy. The client just has to invest 20 minutes to answer the question. Yeah. But then we're able to deliver, a real executive summary that gives them a ton of info on where they're at. And that usually, or obviously, we're using as a closing tool. But even if we don't, at that point, we have to describe what the level of that value is for 2 reasons. Number one, they'll probably come back if the pain remains. Mm-hmm. Number 2, they understand what it is we do. And again, I get back to that referral piece. It is how most of my business runs. If people understand what you do, even if they don't need it, and they trust you and you're memorable, they will then recommend you to somebody else. So you've got to do a lot of work to make sure you're memorable, but that is key. And you will get business that way, I assure you, if you do it right.
Yep. Exactly right. Okay, so this is the last thing that I have, which is just simply that you're almost always, when you start out trying to come up with what to sell or pitch to clients, especially new things, or how to package what you've got, we're almost always on the left. And what we want to sell them and what we want to do for them requires education and persuasion from us to get them to buy it. That's hard. That's a big hill, right? And ultimately, as you test out different messages and you do some research on their wants and needs, and you understand your first 2 or 5 or 10 attempts of talking about it or whatever, might fall a bit flat. So you're trying to get to the right-hand side. Now, in like a fractional CMO, a one-person professional services company, most professional service companies of any size, they're not going to get all the way over to the far right-hand side. But that's the goal, is to get as close to it as you can, which is that the offer is just so clear, right? And it seems so valuable that they convince themselves to buy it. Now, obviously, the more complicated the thing is, or the longer the sales cycle always has to be, or the more it costs, the further back from that far right extreme you ever get, because that's very much a you're in Starbucks and there's like a new type of coffee that here's the price. Yeah, I'll try that. Right, that's the ultimate. On the B2C side. On B2B, you don't normally get all the way over, but the goal is to get as close as you can. Right, it should be so simple to understand, and valuable and concrete, the reward, the deliverable for it, that they can convince themselves to buy it, or at least convince themselves to get on a call with you.
Yep. Simplicity is the key. I mean, platitudes don't sell. AI created stuff doesn't.
Nope. Cliches don't sell.
AI toys, right? That's not going to get it done. But if it's memorable and you're sharpening that message and demonstrating verifiable ROI, you're going to be on the road to trust.
Yeah. There's a reason the Avon ladies used to give out free samples.
That's right. Oh, showing my age, I had a lot of those cool toys, like all the back in the day.
Yeah. I remember when I was a little kid, there was a lot of Skin So Soft in my house, for sure.
The beginnings of multi-level marketing. Yeah.
Yep.
Indeed.
All right. So, I mean, that's kind of all I've got. What do you want to finish up with? Or actually, I'm not on the LinkedIn page right now, but if there were questions and you saw them, we could tackle a couple.
Yeah, no, the last thing I was going to say is that, just as you and I have discussed, I just love multiple fractionals inside of any of the gigs, because it's just fun. And when we both get in there, or three of us or more, we are delivering value that the client didn't have to pay for. Right. And it is also raising our brand, because we delivered value outside of what our actual expertise is, right? So doing that and being mindful of that. And then, like you said, there'll probably be people in your referral network you keep doing work with, because you guys just really kind of work together, and the client always wins. So I always look for those type of opportunities. That's really nirvana for me.
All right, sir. If anyone has a question, feel free to post it in the LinkedIn chat. Otherwise, we started a tiny bit late, but we might be able to give people back a couple minutes in their day before they get back to their grind.
Lovely.
Tom, how should someone reach out for you and connect with you, and who should?
LinkedIn is my world. Been there since 1999. So it's Tom Daly. My company is Focus Insights Group. So certainly catch me on LinkedIn. That's great. I am affiliated with SalesXceleration, but Focus Insights is my company. So thanks.
All right. And then getting with me is pretty straightforward. There's a form right there on winstonwrites.com or dean@waycreative.com. Easy to get to.
Awesome.
And then I feel like there was one more thing. Maybe not.
No, that's most of what I wanted to cover. Again, that's the other piece with the uncertainty right now. It's really good to keep your wits about you, and try not to be emotional, or get emotional for a minute and then go back to it and think how you can run your business in a more effective way with your prospects.
Yeah. And then around the offers, just remember, if your offer is valuable enough and clear enough, you don't have to worry about how you phrase it. You don't have to worry about great copywriting. You don't need me, right? A really good offer, plainly spoken, will outperform a bad offer, well written, every time. I promise you. So just iterate through it. Know that no one gets it right the first time. You're just gonna have to take a few passes at it until you finally get it. But just and it's silly that I feel like I have to say this, but I'm gonna say it anyway. You cannot educate a market into existence and convince them to buy what you want to sell. Just you'll exhaust yourself and use up your money, and you'll be sad. So don't be sad. Dig into what you can fix, what you can fix that they need fixed, and that they know that they need fixed, and that they feel the pain of, and then make an offer around that. And we talked about threshold and how like the very first step should be as small as possible. That actually is kind of fractal and applies to the offer itself, right?
Yeah.
You're way better off having an offer that uh, is like time limited and deliver something for them, like something concrete that moves them towards their positive future in 30, 60, 90 days than trying to immediately lock them into a 2-year engagement.
Yeah.
So the first part of the offer should have a low threshold, and the offer itself should be a relatively low threshold compared to, I mean, ideally you'll get re-upped a bunch of times. You'll stay there for 2 years, help them build a rocket, and off they go. But they're not going to start with that. And so try to bound your offer to make it relatively small. And then that way they can see when it's going to end and they can measure it and they feel safer about it and they go.
Yeah. Hey, one last tidbit that kind of occurs to me that as being a fractional out there, it can be lonely some days, right?
Yes, it is.
You're everything. And one of the things that I always like to do, I'm a sales guy, so I do it, is jump on a call with one of your referral partners or friends or connections that you trust that's willing to say something mean to you, and show them what you're trying to pitch and ask them for just a completely unfiltered feedback. That brainstorming session does two things. Maybe it'll improve what you're doing. And number two, hopefully it deepens your relationship with your referral partner. So, take advantage of that. And if you need somebody to boost your own marketing, make sure to say, hey, take care of me on LinkedIn, boost my stuff, because that's what friends are for.
Yep, absolutely. It's a lonely world
It
when you're
is.
out there on your own, making every decision and doing every job.
Can be.
All right. Thanks again, Tom. Thanks everyone for being here. And for those of you who are watching it as a replay, hope this worked for you and let us know if you have any questions after the fact. All right. Bye, folks. See you.
Steve.